Hi guys, welcome to the Landis Performance Center. Today we're going to be working with a Holley Sniper EFI unit. I'm going to show you how to set the wizard file, do a data log, upload and download files. With all this information, you'll be able to use a laptop to make adjustments and be able to send files remotely to your friends or to a remote tuner. So let's get to it. Okay, so there's our Sniper unit, and there's a couple things that I want to give you guys some part numbers. So the part number 20-16 is the Sniper EFI throttle lever extension. That's what it looks like. It bolts on to the throttle linkage and gives you a better fulcrum for making the throttle easier to pull, especially like when you have a cable system or anything like that. And then if you look in the back corner, you'll see the TV cable bracket. That is a 1953 part number, and that's a throttle and kick down lever bracket. So you can buy those parts from Holley. It makes your installation a lot easier. Okay, so once you have the system installed, you get your 3.5-inch screen and you power up the key and it turns the system on. So from your home screen, you want to click Wizard, pick your system by your part number, number of cylinders, engine displacement. Now this motor is a 266. Your idle speed. And these numbers don't have to be, the idle speed doesn't have to be perfect, just something in the ballpark. Then you want to tell it what cam type. Now I have found that these tunes will overfuel the engine for initial startup, so I would definitely use stock or mild if it's a slight cammed engine. Street strip would be for something that is probably over 500 lift, and race obviously is for race. We're not going to have any power adders on this vehicle. And then you pick your ignition type. So in this vehicle we're using fuel only, so we use coil negative. But if you're using a CDI box or a dual sync or a hyperspark, you would select those. So now the handheld is picked a file, and we're going to send it to the ECU. You can hear the fuel pump turn on, turn off, and you have to cycle the key to make this permanent. Now the handheld reboots, and we're all set now. Now you can hear the fuel pump turn off. Now you can go into your different pages for tuning. You got your basic fuel, target AFR. So you get, with the handheld, you get AFR at idle, AFR at cruise, AFR at watt. You get power enrichment and fuel prime, basic things. You can go through and do all these different things. You can connect some outputs. So now that the engine, you have a base tune in there, what you want to do is you want to start the engine. And if you're using any type of ignition timing control device, like a Holley dual sync, a crank trigger, or hyperspark, you go to static timing, pick a number, make it an even number. So let's go 15. And then you put set, and now the ignition timing is locked at 15 degrees. You would put a timing light on the engine and adjust your distributor till the timing on the harmonic balancer match the timing that you've selected for static. Once you're done, you click clear and you close it. Now whatever timing is on this map here will be the timing it's actually in the engine, 1 for 1. So you'll never have to move the distributor after that. And then you have your monitors. You can go in here and you can see all your sensors. This one, map, coolant, TPS, ignition timing, which is NA in this particular application, IAC position, battery voltage, manifold air temp. You can go to vitals. You can see when your fans are going to turn on and off, AC shut off, and you're not, whether it's an open loop or not, or closed loop or not. These will turn green when they're active. Notice the RPM, it says stall. That means the ECU does not see a ignition input. When you crank the engine over, it should go to syncing, and then it'll start showing an RPM. And what that is the computer seeing a crank signal, it's identifying it, it's accepting it, and then once it accepts it, then it turns the injectors on and you'll receive an RPM and the vehicle will start and run. Very important that if this box turns off while you're cranking the engine, that means the power source, the ignition source that you have going to the ECU is not staying powered up during cranking. Now, it could be a slight power up, but it needs to maintain at least 10 volts to keep everything on. So if this doesn't work, then you need to check your wiring. On old cars that didn't have an ignition signal while cranking, the signal would come from the starter. What I would do is I use a relay and I power it up through the ignition switch, and then I use a jumper from the start switch with a diode. So when it's in start, it's getting power from the start circuit of the ignition switch, and then when you let go of the key to ignition, the diode stops the voltage from going back and making the starter stay engaged. But that's a quick, easy way of doing it, and then the handheld will always stay on while you're cranking it, and the engine will run and start no problem. And you got air-fuel ratio. Now this is going to show what the engine is actually seeing, or what the oxygen wideband sensor is seeing, and what the target is, and then you'll see the percentage of closed loop compensation and current learn. So closed loop compensation is an automatic adjustment from the ECU. It sees the actual, it sees the target, it does a calculation to figure out the percentage of change, and it makes a change. That is not a learned change, that is just a instant change. Then the current learn is the same situation. It takes the information from the closed loop and says, okay, closed loop, when we're at this point, you're always adding 10% fuel. So then the current learn will add 10% so that the closed loop goes to 0. And it goes back and forth to the entire fuel map of the vehicle. So that's how the learning works. And then if you have different other accessories, or if you want to do a dash layout, you can do your different dash layouts there. So that's all good. So now we've got a good running engine. Well, let me rephrase that. We have an engine that runs and seems to run pretty good, but it's not tuned. So you can do a couple things at this point. One, I would go to File and go to Global Calibration Configurations, and there's the tune that the ECU wrote. So then what you want to do is you want to drive the vehicle around, get it so that the closed loop and the learning turn green and are recording. Once that's done that for a little bit, you want to go and download, go back to this page and click Download from ECU. And that's going to tell you what the current file is, and you're going to want to save and give it a new name, or just add the date to it, or some sort of way that you know which file that is. Then you can take that file out of the SD card and put it in your laptop or computer at home, your tower, and you can send it to friends or a tuner or whoever you want to do it to. Send it to. The other thing you want to do is when the vehicle's running, you can click Logging, And then once you got the car up to operating temperature, click Start Logging and drive the car around, especially if it has a hiccup that you're trying to correct. Once you've recorded it a couple of times, or you've recorded a session that you want, click Stop Log, and then you'll have that file be saved. Then you can go to Files, and you'll have all the files that are saved and the size that they are. At that point, you can then send those files. So if you're going to have your vehicle remote tuned, what you need to send to the tuner is the current file that you've saved here, that you've downloaded from the ECU, because the tuner wants to see what the learn table is shown. This file is the original file. There's no learn information in that file. So after you've driven it and you've made your data logs, then you want to click Download from ECU and give it a new name. That's the file that you want to send to your tuner. So you send them that file, and you send them the data log, and then they can go through the data log and then make corrections to the file and send you a new file. When you have the new file and you put it on your SD card, the name will be on here, and you would upload to ECU. So you're uploading the file from here and putting it in the ECU that's in the throttle body. So that's how that works. So let's go to the computer, and I'll show you some stuff on that. Okay, so after you drive your Sniper fuel injection vehicle around for a little bit with the data log going, and after you finished the drive, you downloaded the ECU file to a new name, you can go to your desktop or laptop and make some adjustments in the software so that you don't have to be connected to the car. So first thing we want to do is we have to transfer the files from the SD card to our computer. So we go to our Windows, Documents, Holley, and Sniper, and got configuration files. So obviously I've got multiple files in here, so I have to go to a specific folder location. Now we're at their GCF, so let me backtrack a little bit here. So we're at Holley. This is the main page of the SD card. Click on Holley, then F103, which is our newest firmware. Save GCF, and we select the new file that we saved, which is this one right here. We drag it over to our config files in our Sniper folder. Then we want to go back to Datalogs, and we have to open where we want that folder to land. Back to our SD card, back all the way to the very beginning. Underneath Holley is Save Data Logs. We click there, and we have 2 logs saved. So what we're going to do here, as you can see, these already have the same name. So we'll just go ahead and we can change these names by right-clicking and rename. And just do that for all of them. Oh, I deleted that one by mistake. Okay, so now what you can do is go back to our SD card, click on one, hit Control, and then we can drag both. Okay, so now we can open this stuff in the software. We can minimize our pages here. So now we have, let's go ahead and open this up from scratch. So we'll go to our Holley Sniper software, and we want to open a config file. We're going to open the one that we just saved. Okay, and the reason why we want to save after we run the car is because now our learn table will be populated. If you just pull a file out that's already there, the learn information isn't on that file. You have to re-save it, and I like to save it to a different name, and that way you have all the learning. So now we can see on this learning table how much fuel was either added or taken away from the tune. Okay, so now let's go to a data log. Wait, this back a couple of pages here. Okay, data logs. And let's look at the latest data log. All right, so here's the last data log we made. You can see that it was almost 500 seconds in length. So some information. Let's go ahead and knock off some of these different. So right now there is, our red is RPM, as it's denoted here, and our green is TPS. So now you can see during this drive right here, the engine stalled. So that's a good point, because now we want to see what, and here it was trying to stall. So we want to see what was going on during those things. And you can see by the TPS that the throttle was closed. That's important, because anytime your TPS is being moved, there's adder tables for acceleration enrichment, just like in a carburetor, your accelerator pump. So you don't want to make a tuning adjustment on something that is a rapid change in acceleration. You want to change your timing, your fuel tuning and timing tuning on steady state. Like right here is a good steady state. Okay, so now what we can do is we'll bring on our actual AFR. Here's our AFR. So now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on here because this is a long data log. So let's pick this first section right here. So we're going to click here, and we're going to go drag our mouse like that, and now that opens up that screen just to that section. So here's our entire data log, and here's where we're captured. So at this point, now that it's opened up a little bit, we can see what's going on, and now we can add our target AFR. So here's our target AFR and our actual AFR, and you can see they're following along very nicely. So during the cruise, that section looked really good. So now if we put a cursor here, when we go back to our tuning map, you can see where it was riding. And at that point, the learning tables had already adjusted that section, and with those adjustments, it was good, because you can see in this adjustment here, the target and the AFR were going right along at the same. So now when the throttle was shut and we had these little hiccups here, we can go to here, and there the engine got lean, which one denote here, see here's the dip, but the AFR got lean behind it. It's because the exhaust, the O2 sensor is downstream, it's not in the combustion chamber. So that will always be that way. So you just know that whatever this adjustment here was really at this point. So we can go to here, and we can see that the AFR was 19.6 and our target was 12.9. So we go back to here, that's where it actually happened. Now we can go back to our fuel table, and there's where the cell was. So now we can make adjustments here. Well, actually we want to go to base fuel. So there's our base fuel, and it's in volumetric efficiency. I prefer brake specific, brake system, fuel consumption, fuel flow. That's how I like to tune things. So we know here that these numbers here are lean. So we're going to go ahead and raise these up to stop that section from going in. So what we'll probably do is we'll right click on, single click on that cell right there. And then we're going to use our arrow keys. Our arrow keys are going to go up and down. Add 1% either way, or if you hit the control key and up, it's 5%. So we're going to give it, well, let's go back and do the math. So here, 16, I think it was 19 there. So get our calculator. So we're at 19 divided by 13. So that's a 46% increase we need to do there. I probably wouldn't go that far, but at least now you know how much increase you need to go. So now we'll go to this cell and let's increase it 20. So we'll hit the control and right arrow to increase in 5% increments. So we're going to hit it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you see it made the change. So now what we'll do is highlight this way and right click on it, and we're going to fill the row values. So it's going to take those 3 numbers and it's going to equalize them. So we went 16, 69, 17, 8. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to here. So now it's going to go from 16 to 6.83, and it's going to normalize all these, or interpolate all these. So again, right click, and we're going to fill column. Okay, so now what we can do is we can go this way and we'll right click, and we're going to do fill row. Now we want to equal out all of these here. So we're going to fill row values. And there it did. Now you can see on the screen, let me move the cursor. So now you can see here there's little arrows, and that's telling you which way those cells were adjusted. So now we've added fuel to this section, so that should help in the stalling. So let's go back and read some more on the data log. All right, so we looked at this section. Let's look at the section where it actually stalled. Okay, so when we lifted out of the throttle, it got rich, and then it went lean. And then it tried to catch itself, but by then the engine was already on its way out. So let's see where that was at on the fuel map. And that was down here. So what we're going to do now is let's look at the learn. And see, these are all kind of positives, but the thing is, on deacceleration, you will not get too much fuel adjustments. Usually the open loop or the closed loop and learn basically work when the engine is steady state or accelerating lightly. Deaccel, it normally shuts off, so this section will be harder to get tuned. So what we're going to do now is go back to our fuel map, go back to our base fuel flow rates, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this section and we're going to increase it by, let's increase it by 10%. Okay, and you can see now those numbers have all gone up. Now we want to smooth out the graph, so we're going to go across here and we're going to fill row values, and now we're going to go this way, do the same thing. We're going to do column this time. We want to go up and down, and that way it just smooths it all out. So we go to our fuel graph. Looks like we're going to have to it's base fuel consumption. You can see that the engine is very smooth as that goes. All right, so we can go back here. Everything's pretty good. Let's go back to our learn. Now that we've made these adjustments, what we can do is we can transfer to learn, because we have a pretty good, let me turn off this overlay. So whenever you want the data log to show in your tune, that is overlay. So we can remove the overlay, and now we're back to different colors on the graph. So we'll go back to our learn, and what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the learn to base. Okay. And now you can see on these graphs, if I put the colors on there, it's hard to see. Now it's all white again. You can see there where all the places where it made adjustments. So that's all done now. So now we've fixed our fuel curve for that data log. Now there's some other things that you want to do to your tune in the tower or in the software that you can't do on a handheld. So let's go to target AFR, and here's our target AFR, and it is very 13.5 here, 12.5 up there, 14.0. It's a simple graph, and it's on the rich side. So to make it run cleaner, get better fuel mileage, we're going to go to 2D table. Now we're going to change this section. We're going to make that 14.0 and hit enter. Then we're going to take this section, this is our cruise section, and we're going to type in 14.7. And we're going to go this way, right click, and fill row volume of values. Now 12.5 is pretty rich, especially for a stock engine, so we can take that to 12.9. okay, and then what we do is we can come down here, right click, and we'll fill column values. I'm going to do the same thing here. We're going to go down to here, and now let me put it in the color. So now you can see we're in the cruising range, 2,000 over. We're going to target 14.7 because we're at light load, barely any throttle, so we can lean it out there and get some fuel economy out of the vehicle. And as we get on the throttle to go to wide open throttle, you can see the numbers get richer as we go. They don't need to be all rich. At 3/4 throttle and you're in this area, you don't need to be 12.9. That's just throwing fuel out the tailpipe. So we can be 13.7 and 13.4. That's fine. So that's one thing you can do here. Now, of course, you can change this table any way you want. If you're looking for maximum fuel economy, what you'd probably want to do is data log and see where you are in your cruising range. Find those cells in this area. You could take them out to 15.0 if you want. You have to watch for detonation, but you can because it's very, very light load there. So now this car is fuel only, but if we did have timing controlled also, again, the handheld only makes a simple file. So 15 at idle, 36 at cruise, 32 at wide open throttle. So you can change that by clicking your table there, and then you can manipulate these any way you want. Typically, if it were a timing controlled car, I would put 22 degrees there. 32 up there is fine. So I would interpolate these, fill column values. That's all pretty good there. So I would then go from here down to about here. Do the same, interpolate by fill column values. And that way now you've got some curvature in the tune. And then again, if you were trying to get maximum fuel economy, I would probably come in here and do something like this. Put that at 50 degrees. and interpolate. That's going to be fill row. Interpolate. It's going to be fill row. And I would do column. And now you'd have a pretty good fuel curve there. And you can see that these numbers are all basically climbing as the load gets lighter. And then in your highway cruising area, we got the timing out to about 50 degrees. Of course, these are just raw numbers. This may not work on your application, but I'm just trying to give you the idea of how you can control this stuff. If you think about a old school car with a vacuum advance, this is your mechanical advance up here, and this is your vacuum advance. Very light load, vacuum, signal gets pulled up, and it advances the timing. That's how they get fuel economy that way. And as soon as you tip in the throttle, the vacuum goes away and it gets back into the mechanical timing. Same thing with your fuel. When you're in fuel, this section here is your idling. This section up here is your wide open throttle. This is deceleration. And this is your, if you're tipping in and stuff like that, it's going to go through here. So those are just, the different things you can do when you're on a laptop or on a PC desktop that you can't do with the handheld. So you can make these adjustments, right? Go up here, we save it. Now we're going to save it to a different name again now because we've made adjustments. We don't want to save it to the same name. So what we're going to do now is, since I already put that one as today's date, I'm going to do _01. So that means it's the next tune after the previous one. Then what we'll do then is pull up our so this is our documents file where all of our software is being stored. Go to Sniper, configuration files, find the file you're working with. Obviously, if you only have one car, you're only going to have one file in that system, or one folders in that system. Then we want to pull up our SD card. Go back to the card. And we're going to, because we want to transfer the global file, we want to click on Holley, the firmware that we're running, save GCF. And then we just simply take this folder, drag it over there, boom, it's done. Now we're ready to go back to the car and upload the file to the ECU. And then we will data log and do it again. Once you have this learning table to where it's plus or minus 5, you're pretty much done, because barometric pressures, weather conditions and stuff like that are always going to affect that to a point. And when it's plus or minus 5, it's only 5% adjustment, so it's 10 total. But that's more than enough to do what you need to do. One other thing that I didn't do that I should is you click on the ECU icon and you go to closed loop learn. Now on this table I've already done it some, but once you've got the tune in there and you've made adjustments, and as you saw, we were at the 15% in the learning stuff. So what you could do is highlight this whole thing, go to 20. Now that's giving you 20 plus and 20 minus fuel control. So it's still 40% overall fuel control. And same thing with your learning. Drop that down to 20. Now the reason you want to do this is when you first put the SD card in your computer and you open these pages up, they're going to be at 100% or 150% compared to according to whatever tune's in there. So you have to think, if your O2 sensor went bad, your closed loop is 100% and your learn is 100%, that's 200%. The O2 sensor or the wideband, when it goes bad, it skews lean. Well, the ECU is going to try to fix it by using as much control as it has. And in that circumstances, it has 100 to 150% on both tables, up to 200% of correction. And it could make the engine run so rich that it fouls the plugs and then leaves you stranded. So once you get it tuned, you want to knock these numbers down. All right, so since we've adjusted these values, they were still a little high. Let's go ahead and put that into our file now, so that way we don't forget. So again, we go back, since we already have this file is up here, January 16, 2401, it's the second tune for that day. We can just hit Save Config. I have to pull up our files. Now we already ejected the SD card, so I have to reinstall it. Okay. So there's our SD card. Again, we want to go Holley, newest firmware, save GCF. I'm going to go find our saved file in our computer. It's going to be under Holley Sniper configuration files, and find your folder. And we're going to just drag that back over, and we're going to replace the file in the designation. So now I just rewrote that file with those last minute adjustments made. So now we're good to go. We can pull this out, eject our SD card, put it in the car, upload. When we go to the handheld, we want to upload to ECU, and then take the car for a ride and data log once again. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, well, I hope you found this video informative. We're going to start doing these in modules, taking each section of the tuning one bit at a time. That way it's easy to reference when you're doing your own vehicle. So give us a like, comment in the comment section if you have any questions, and subscribe. And we'll see you in future Holley tuning videos. See ya!